Convene an executive session in the main office conference room pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42, 46, 4, and 5 for the purposes of 1, discussion regarding update on investigative proceedings regarding alleged misconduct pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42, 46, 5A, 4, and legal advice related thereto. Item 2, discussion regarding paraprofessionals collective bargaining agreement pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42, 46, 5A, 2. And thirdly, discussion regarding contract for staff accountant pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42, 46, 5A, 1. And then we will consider and vote on a motion to adjourn and reconvene. Can I have a motion?
I move. Make the first motion.
Make a motion. Motion made by Ms. Azanero.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And I know Ms. Boshane is in traffic and on her way, but we will head to executive and pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42, 46, 5A1. Any persons being discussed or affected will give an advance notice of the executive meeting in writing and advise that they may require such discussion be held in an open meeting. No request has been made, and we are in executive. like to call the public session to order. We could stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance. Thank you. I'd like to report that there were no votes, well, the only votes taken in executive session were 4-0 to return back to public session, and I will entertain a motion to seal the executive session minutes pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42, 46, 4, and 5.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brandel. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Is that- Ms. Bukta, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Is that working? Good evening, everyone. Second quarter has officially begun at East Providence schools, bringing new events and programs to the school district. Report cards are going out tomorrow, and parent-teacher conferences will be held tomorrow and Thursday, so students will have a half day on Thursday. High school students have brought back the peer tutoring program to EPHS to help students who are struggling academically. Students will be able to schedule win blocks to meet with classmates who can help them. The computer science students will be participating in the Cyber Patriot competition this Saturday, which will be hosted at EPHS. Many school clubs and local programs are preparing to sell goods at the Christmas Bazaar, which will be held on Saturday, December 3rd. This will be a community-wide event to raise funds for the participating programs. East Providence students have been active in supporting their community, especially as the holiday season begins. EPHS had a very successful sock drive last month for Socktober, collecting over 1,500 pairs of socks. They'll be moving on to a sneaker drive this month. Riverside Middle School is holding a can drive, and Martin Middle School is holding a food drive this month to help feed the needy this November. Fall sports are drawing to a close. Tennis and football played their playoff games recently, and the girls volleyball team played in the state championship last weekend. Winter sports are beginning to hold sign-ups and will be beginning to play by the end of the month. That is all I have for today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. With the, let me get my bearings here. Do you have that listed separately, or is that under the super? Okay. I'm like looking for it. So yeah, with the permission of the other members, we have a special recognition planned for tonight, and I'd like to, since we're a little late coming out, I'd like to move forward with that recognition. And I believe there are probably maybe a couple gentlemen a little more qualified than myself or anyone here to explain why we're here tonight. So if without objection, I'll just move that. Thank you. But I appreciate Ms. Beauchene was ready to make that motion, so we're all in support.
Second. There we go.
So I'd like to thank you, thank the school committee for allowing us to be here tonight. We have a special presentation that we were supposed to do at the city council meeting, but apparently they did their presentation directly before the executive session, so unfortunately we missed it, but thanks.
Hold on. Alfred, is that mic on? No, it's off. Can you just click that? Because we want to make sure that
How's that, better?
There we go.
All right, perfect. So, again, thank you. So on behalf of the East Providence Fire Department, we'd like to recognize Ms. Days DePietro for her quick actions in recognizing a medical emergency while working at a local restaurant. Many times in an emergency, people either do not know how to react or they choose not to get involved. Ms. DePietro, a high school junior, chose not only to get involved, but also to render medical assistance. It is inspiring that Ms. DePietro, at such a young age, used the skills that she learned in Pre-Nursing 1 class offered through the Career and Tech Center at East Providence High School to care for a woman experiencing a medical emergency. When medical emergencies occur, oftentimes minutes are the difference between life and death. Emergency medical services systems, like the East Providence Fire Department, rely on lay rescuers, such as Ms. DePietro, to not only recognize an emergency and call 911, but also to render aid to the extent that they're capable. Due to the actions of Ms. DePietro, the patient received excellent care until the arrival of emergency personnel. In recognition of her actions, the East Providence Fire Department would like to present Ms. DePietro with a certificate of appreciation that reads, State of Rhode Island, City of East Providence Fire Department. Certificate of Appreciation. Chief Glenn J. Quick, on behalf of the members of the East Providence Fire Department, recognizes Days DePietro of the East Providence High School Career and Technical Center for rapidly recognizing a medical emergency and rendering aid utilizing the skills taught in the Pre-Nursing 1 program prior to the arrival of emergency medical services. Given this 5th day of November 2022, signed by Chief Glenn J. Quick, who happens to be in the back. So if Ms. DePietro would like to come forward so I can present her with her certificate.
Ms. DePietro, I think you can just stay here. The school department would like to also. First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
So the school department obviously is very proud of you, Daisy, and Ms. Martin on just the collaboration of what she's doing in the classroom and how you're receiving that and how it paid off for an individual of the community. And I think coming out of, quite frankly, coming out of election season, we've heard enough negativity on a national, local, state, what have you. So that story coming out is like, there we go, that's what this is all about. So thank you for reminding us all what we do here, what our teachers do, and what the community is here for. So we have a piece of recognition for you here. It says, for courageously taking swift action to help a person in need, presented November 15th, 2022, to Ms. Daisy DePietro. Thank you very much. And because you do not necessarily work alone, we would like to do the same for Ms. Christina Martin. For your dedication and commitment to the students. And this reads, for exceptional service in preparing health occupation students to act in a real emergency. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little glad that we get to present that instead of the council because, we're nicer people here. Kidding. So no, but thank you very much. Seriously, personally for me, 10 years coming out of this, that's what it's about. So next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda with communications, correspondence, homeschool requests, and approval of minutes.
Do you have any questions, discussions, comments, or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion by Mr. Brandel. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item is PTO, PTA, EPLAC reports.
Hello, everyone. Just wanted to report that last month's meeting was on October 26th. We hosted our first workshop of the school year with many staff and parents in attendance. Our neurodiversity workshop focused on making a shift towards more neurodiversity and affirming practices. This was presented by Brittany Kobasi, one of East Providence speech and language pathologists. A takeaway from that night is our words matter, changing the way we think and say to be a positive affirmation. For example, every time you think of calling a kid attention-seeking this year, consider changing it to connection-seeking and see how your perceptive changes. That was a really good workshop, and Leslie Anderson was there also, and we thought, wow, this could be taught to everybody in the district. It was just great. It was a great, positive.
Just that one, right? That one example.
Yes.
You know, it's
The way you word something just uplifts. Our next meeting is November 30th at 6 p.m. at Martin Middle School Library. We're working on some more workshops for the upcoming year, but right now, that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Craig, can you check and see if there's any? Trying to save you.
Too fast.
Now we're going to hurry up and continue so that you have to catch up on the minutes. Next item, please.
Who's filling in for Sandy? Do we know?
I believe Dr. Bowler, are you going to? Yes.
The next item is the superintendent's report, with Dr. Bowler filling in for Dr. Fran.
So we already addressed the first item, which was the students' recognition, and the second item is the MCAP MOU for the Community Health Center, and that information is in your packet. The MOU was thoroughly vetted through our legal team, and we are ready to move forward, and Mr. Roy is here in the audience in case there are any additional questions.
Are there any questions regarding the EPCAP MOU? That was easy for you, right? So, and thank you. I know it's been, I think, a thorough process, and you know, Dr. Ferrand and yourself working through. I think it's, you know, it's going to be a great asset and resource to the community. Thank you.
Next item is the attendance officer job description, and the description and salary is in your packet. It was also sent to you electronically, so you've had some time to look it over. There is the amount per hour per week and comparison salaries that were compared across different districts.
Any questions? So, Dr. Bowler, just on that, I know there was discussion about the amount of time.
You mean the
Yes.
hours per week?
Yes,
I believe it was about 20 hours per week.
about 20 hours. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just one question. Would it be for the whole year for clarification? I know the last time we were talking about it, it was
I
possibly.
didn't hear you, I'm
So
sorry.
is it
Is
the,
it like a full-time position?
Well, 20 hours a week would be
Oh, part-time.
part-time, and I'm assuming that the attendance officer would serve all of our schools.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
and the item 4 on there, I'll entertain a motion to
Table.
table that item on the revised calendar at the request of the superintendent.
I make motion to table that.
Motion by Ms. Boshain, do we have a second?
At the suggestion of the superintendent, I will table that. Someone needs to answer.
I'll second.
There was a second by, we have a motion by Ms. Boshain, a second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries the table. Any other questions on the superintendent's report? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Polo. Next item, please.
Next item is the Director of Teaching and Learning report by Lindsay Riley.
So you have I believe you have a copy in your packet, and if you have any questions, Director Riley will come down and answer those. If you recall, you saw a preliminary at the last school committee meeting, and since then, we have made some adjustments. We've reached out to other stakeholders and finalized our plan that will go to RIDE.
Could you just, for the sake of public and, for those that were watching last time, kind of speak to it in general and maybe highlight some of the adjustments?
Yes.
Thank you.
So at the October meeting, we brought forward the idea for your approval to move forward with the development of plan. The plan is, the process is that districts have the opportunity to submit an inclement weather virtual learning plan to RIDE for approval. Having an approved plan on file gives the superintendent the opportunity to call a virtual learning day when we are faced with inclement weather or another type of emergency. It doesn't mean that we will use this plan. It means that we have the option to do so if that's what the superintendent decides. We moved forward from that point with some of the frameworks that we discussed. We brought it forward to the district leadership team, so directors collaborated on the initial draft of this plan. We did meet with union leadership from the secretaries union, the paraprofessional union, and the teacher union to go through some of the details. Some of the feedback we got in that session you see in the revision. Other things were logistical pieces that weren't part of the required, plan, but will help us more seamlessly transition and make sure that, every teacher and staff member is prepared to do what we're asking them to do if we do have to go to a virtual learning plan. Some of the specifics include 3 hours of synchronized instructional time for our K-12 students. What we've included in the plan are some, which is why we shared it with you electronically. There are a lot of hyperlinks and things so that people can access sample schedules and what their day will look like. One of the examples that came out of some of the feedback sessions were, how will we prepare, early career educators who may not have had the experience with virtual learning as some of us had. And so we're going to be holding some PD sessions where we can share templates and examples and really get them sort of prepared. I use the example of The pre-K that follows a very different model with packets and family engagement, that's already prepared and ready. We want to prepare our early career, our new educators or new to their positions with the same sort of template and tools ready to be successful if we were to pivot. It's this careful balance of being prepared but not taking too much time, because the reality is we may never execute the plan that's in front of you. And so we met with the principals most recently to gather feedback and for them to review with the goal of submitting prior to Thanksgiving or as soon as possible, so that we would have something in place before we're faced with having to make a decision around weather.
Any questions? Thank you. Thanks for, it's good to get that in advance, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
This time, I'll do it right. I'll entertain a motion. I would like to move, and I apologize, Mr. Bradner. I have, one of our discussion items is around the Facility Equity Initiative, and I have Sam Bradner from Peregrine here, who started out my morning on an 8 o'clock call with Mr. Bradner, our weekly call, and he's here again this evening. So I'll entertain a motion, if you don't mind, to move that item up.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brandel,
Second?
second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Is that better?
I'll pay the fine.
Yes.
I left mine at home. Oh, is it? So I'm gonna yell at you again? Okay. I mean, we paid for the paper, right? It's good restaurant drawing paper. I can't keep my phone though for that agenda. It's not working so well.
So this is, what you have in front of you was presented to the building committee, which, by the way, congrats to East Providence for approving the bond for Martin Middle School and Waddington project. Just another proud moment and wise decision by the voters of East Providence. So this kind of brings us to this other initiative that Sam will speak to. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad I could bookend your day today, so I will be briefer than we were this morning. Members of the committee, this is just a very quick overview of a program that the East Providence School District is available or allowed to apply for through the Rhode Island Department of Education. It's called the Facility Equity Initiative. This may ring a bell. We talked about this a little bit during the Stage 2 review and approval process as we were going through all the proposed work for both Martin Middle School and Waddington Elementary. Just a quick summary of what the program is. Last year, RIDE introduced this new program to 4 communities, and the goal was really to kind of create facility equity across the state. So working with communities that want to have equity in their buildings and in their teaching and learning environment, and how the state could participate in that process. And they've been able to allocate some of the overall statewide construction bond funds towards this initiative. So last year they did a $10 million pilot program in 4 communities. This year they increased it to, I believe, 10 communities and $30 million, and East Providence is eligible for this program. So what you have in front of you, and we'll just go through the pages really quick, is just a quick summary of the work that we're proposing to submit into this application process. The application is due on December 1st to the department. It requires approval and signature by the school committee chair, the superintendent, and the municipal finance director, Mr. Moore. So that's why we're going through these steps with the bodies. Chairman Montero mentioned last night we presented this to the building committee, and we're before this group tonight. But the goal of the program is really to focus on kind of targeted improvement projects for various districts and various buildings. And some of the examples they give are converting libraries into media centers, improving auditoriums, creating project-based learning makerspaces, modernizing science labs, and also doing some outdoor learning and recreation spaces for schools throughout these various districts. So when we were going through the stage 2 work, if you recall, there was a track 2 of work at Waddington that was outside of the bond but submitted in the stage 2 to ensure that it would at least get approved. The direction from RIDE was look at other opportunities to fund that work or to fund even components within the bonded work, which would then allow more flexibility to move those dollars between those 2 tracks at Waddington Elementary. So if we go to the first page, please. So what you'll see here, and again, I know we threw a lot of diagrams at this group back over the last several months, but this is the diagram of Waddington Elementary. And what you'll see is there is a series of projects listed down below, 1 through 6. Those are projects that we've already included in the stage 2 work, but we are also going to apply for through this facility equity initiative. And those include some of those improvements to the classrooms, some of the security items, improvements around the school to the vestibule. And the goal, again, is if these can get approved through the facility equity initiative, then it could free up other dollars in the bond to move that, to have more flexibility to maybe tackle some of those track 2 things that maybe we're on the outside looking in, at least from a bond standpoint. So the team has been working directly with the district leadership on evaluating these projects again, even though we did a pretty exhaustive vetting process, and then also prioritizing these. And then each of those projects that you see highlighted there will go into this application here, which is about a 45-page document. So each project that's listed by the numbers down below has its own application page. We have an associated cost with that project, and then we have to validate how quickly we'll be able to deliver. One of the things that RIDE is focused on is deploying these dollars quickly and having districts implement them on a very rapid basis. The first round, they only allowed a year to deliver these improvements. This round, they're allowing 18 months. So they are asking that the districts validate that these projects can be done by the summer of 2024. So they will be going through their review and approval process and then denoting award. And then this work will have to be designed and implemented on a pretty fast track basis. But I think the good thing is that some of these things could happen in concert with some of the other improvements that are already going to be proposed for Waddington. So we're hoping for some efficiency, that even though there might be 2 sources of dollars that are coming in for these projects, they can be designed and probably bid and built, as if they were one project. If we go to the next page, one additional school that was not part of the stage 2 work was Riverside Middle School. And again, these projects, we talked about some of the priorities that the state was focusing on. Here, the area in the purple is transformation of the library into a multi-purpose library media center. So really kind of delivering that modern 21st century learning space, maker space, flexible space for learning. Not quite akin to what you have on the upper floors here at the high school, but that same kind of environment for students to be able to learn in a completely different way. Another project here was enhancement to the science labs. So you have 6 of the 8 existing science labs proposed for renovation here. We just finished, or we're working on a very similar project in Central Falls right now, where they did those upgrade to 2 of their science labs, brand new furniture, upgrading HVAC wherever possible, upgrading finishes, again, to kind of deliver that modern science lab learning experience. And then the last one here is creating some flexible outdoor classroom space, which is represented in that blue shape. The location is flexible. Had a discussion with Jessica last night about making sure that we're not undoing recent work that happened at the rear of the building. So we will be very cognizant of that if this is an awarded element from RIDE, that we're looking at that placement and that location in a way that is, comprehensive and consistent with the other improvements that are happening there. And then finally, on the last page, you'll see these renderings of Martin Middle School. These are what the final proposed design was. We're going to include in this package is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment and technology for the entire Martin renovation project. So while that was already included in your Stage 2 application, if dollars can be taken and used from FEI to support this component that was already in your bonded amount, again, you could swing those dollars out and apply it to some of the other Waddington work that maybe was in that Track 2 work, and therefore having more flexibility with those dollars. There are also other funding sources out there that RIDE has recently announced. One is focused around furniture and technology. So it may also be that RIDE says, we see your application, we actually have another source for this, maybe you want to consider that. So, but we wanted to be comprehensive. One of the instructions from RIDE was to oversubscribe. So you'll see a lot more projects than what you will actually be awarded. But we think that that's a good thing. It helps them also demonstrate that there is a need and hopefully to sustain this program beyond just the first 2 years that they've been talking about. So that concludes the summary. I'm happy to answer any questions or if there's any comments from the committee.
Any questions from the committee? So, Sam, thank you for holding off. I know I told you I'd move you up, but
I'll stay here all night if you need me to. I don't mind.
that's why you have to sit in the front where no. So I think it's important to note, right? So there were 11 separate requests, applications, and then so we submit, we wait, and then RIDE comes back and might say, okay, you're approved for, these 4, 6, 7, however many in which order. Is it fair to say that because a lot of these items were part of our Stage 2 submission, which means we have at least some preliminary architectural mock-ups, drawings, concepts, that we're in a better position than maybe other districts that don't have projects in the making or Stage 2 type submission.
Yeah,
because you look at that track of 18 months.
Yeah, I mean you're leaps and bounds ahead. I don't know of other districts, but certainly when we did our application last year for Central Falls, we were basically making up concepts as we went because the projects really hadn't been developed yet. These have already gone through the pretty exhaustive vetting process through your Stage 2 work, so I think that puts you in a great position to be ready to jump into them. And it also, at least RIDE will have an awareness of what these projects are because they're part of the bigger application that went in.
Now, I'll reiterate or speak to the question that was asked last night about funding, and because obviously we just approved the bond for our Martin Middle School Waddington project. These projects outside of those two schools, an approval of that does not represent an additional bond request. We're talking about using capital CIP funds that we have in our budget between now and June of '24, let's say, to front and then get reimbursed if approved and so forth. But it would not require additional bonding by the City of East Providence to tackle whatever amount we were to get. And again, if we'll manage what we can with the cash flow that we have. And it would be a sad situation, but I think if all that was approved was related to the Martin and Waddington project, then that would basically maybe just equate to a reduction in the bond borrowing because we would have those funds instead. But the hope is that we have more than enough outside of that Stage 2 148 amount to tackle these identified needs in the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, please.
The next item is the Director of Human Resources report by Mark Williamson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. First, like to review appointments that were made, just for your information. I know it's in your packet, but just to publicly announce them. Elizabeth Bedard was appointed as a paraprofessional at the Early Learning Center effective October 3rd of 2022. Robin Leather was appointed as a resource teacher for East Providence High School effective October 19th, 2022. Victoria Castle was appointed as a paraprofessional at Waddington effective October 25th, 2022. Heather McKnight was appointed as a paraprofessional at Waddington effective October 31st, 2022. Kristen Fox Kozowski was appointed as a social worker at White Neck will be effective November 28th of 2022. Manuela Bernardo was appointed as a custodian at the Riverside Middle School effective November 7th, 2022. Jessica Savageau is appointed as a teacher in the kindergarten at Francis, and that will be effective on November 18th of 2022. And Emily Diaz will be appointed as a staff accountant for the district effective November 28th of 2022. Mr. Chairman, for the committee's vote to accept, I have some resignations. I'd like to introduce them as a group and ask you to consider them as a group. First one is Karen Rickert, Library Media Specialist at Kent Heights and Hennessy, and her resignation is effective November 5th of 2022. Next is Caitlin Stringfellow, a paraprofessional at Hennessy, and her resignation is effective October 14th, 2022. And finally, Susan Tavares, a paraprofessional at Silver Spring, effective November 3rd, 2022.
Comments, discussion, or motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Azanero. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Azanero, second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next is a group of retirements to announce and for your vote for approval and acceptance. First one is Paul Amaral, who is phys ed teacher at the high school. His retirement is effective October 21st of 2022. Next is Regina Jones, a grade 4 teacher at Kent Heights, and her retirement will be effective the end of the 22-23 school year. And then finally, Julie Penha, an administrative assistant at Orlo, effective the end of 22-23 school year. And I apologize, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just go back to each of these and read a little bit of information about their career here at East Providence. So starting with Mr. Amaral, Paul has retired as a physical education teacher at the East Providence High School. He was hired on September 4th of 1991 as a health and physical education teacher at the high school. During his tenure there, he served as physical education teacher, assistant athletic director, and coached various sport teams. Paul has worked for the school department for a total of 31 years. In the case of Ms. Jones, Regina Jones will be retiring as a grade 4 teacher at Kent Heights at the end of this year. She was hired on September 5th of 1989 as a grade 1 teacher at the Grove Elementary School. From the Grove Avenue School, she moved to the Kent Heights Elementary School and taught various grade levels. At her retirement, she will have worked for the district for a total of 34 years. And finally, Julie Penna will be retiring as the administrative assistant at the Orlo Avenue Elementary School effective the end of the 22-23 school year. She was hired on September 5th, 2000 as an administrative assistant for the Waddington Elementary School. Julie worked at Waddington until August of 2007 when she transferred to the Orlo Avenue School. This is the position she'll retire from. Upon her retirement, she will have worked for the district for a total of 23 years.
And is a very good friend with Petey the Parrot, from what I understand. So, little Orlo.
She's also a very good Olaf.
She will be, that's a lot of spirit to replace in one space, so congrats to all of them and thank you for your services. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Azanera, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Brandel, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes my report unless there's any questions from the committee.
Any questions? Thank you.
Can I just say a quick word, because those numbers are outstanding of the time and commitment that group of people put in to the East Providence School Department. I happen to have a really big heart and a real soft spot for Julie, so I met her a long time ago, and I'm not really sure how it happened, but the women taught me Zumba, and I really, yeah, she had some Zumba classes for kids, for adults, for everybody. Her enthusiasm and passion for students are amazing, and she will be greatly, greatly missed in this school system, as will the others. I just happen to know this person particularly very well, and I know that she will enjoy retirement probably more than anybody I've ever met in my life. So I congratulate her very, very much, and she will be missed. So.
Next item, please.
Next item is the Director of Finance report by Craig Enos.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Happy new fiscal year. So as in years past, the finance report that you have before you is the end of the year summary for the fiscal year 22 that just ended. No, I do not have a final number as to where we landed. I can tell you that we are in good shape. That as I always say in years past, over the next few months, we're going to have some ups, we're going to have some downs as final bills come in, more revenue comes in. So, but we are in good shape. Just a couple of areas that I always like to highlight for your edification. So in the 53,000 series in the purchase services, just to show you, so if you look at the first few lines there, for speech therapists, occupational therapists, and psychologists, you can see that we did go over the budgeted numbers for those areas. They are, other than the speech therapist, which is, if you go over a couple more columns, you can see what we spent last fiscal year. So in fiscal year 21, we spent less in speech therapists, but we have an increased need for our students, which is why we ended up spending more. So I just like to point that out so you can look at where we are landing at the year end versus where we were compared to fiscal year 21. And then over on page 2 for the 55,000 series, as the fiscal year wraps up, for the accounts 55, 630, 640, and 650, all the accounts for our special education out-of-district tuitions. As the purchase orders close out, as final bills come in, we'll see probably some of those results will change for the year end as well. And then finally, in the last section in the revenues, we can see where for fiscal year 2022 year to date, we have received all of our state aid. So the increase number there as compared to what we budgeted, that is the result of our increase in state aid that took effect on July 1. And then you can see for the tuition for the students that are attending the CTC, the number there is $783,000 compared to a budgeted number of $575,000. So that's the highlight. Are there any specific questions that you have regarding the finance report?
So you said you're comfortable with where this is sitting?
We've done a good job. We have used all of our resources very well this year. So I'll use this pause to give my monthly plug to any parents that are watching out there. It is never too late to fill out your school lunch application. www.myschoolapps.com. Takes 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Mr. Enos? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is the Director of Facilities report by Christopher Murphy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Let's see, starting off, some high school updates. After extended discussions regarding the appropriate manner in which to effect the drain pipe repair, the team has arrived at a consensus agreement. Enhanced drain pipe repair plan is being formulated right now, and on-site repairs are due to resume shortly. Overall construction work at the high school is approximately 97.5% complete, with punch list items being addressed on a daily basis throughout the school and around the property. Regarding winter prep, as this takes a lot of effort on everybody's part, preparation for the onset of the winter months is continuing within the ranks of the custodial services and the maintenance department. Primary challenge has been addressing heat issues in some of the schools with older heating systems. They've been addressed, and we're getting, as they pop up, they're being taken care of. We are in receipt of 3 new box trucks that have been, new to the district box trucks. These are used vehicles that have been delivered and are awaiting registration and ready to be put into almost immediate use. In addition to the 3 box trucks, we also anticipate the arrival of 2 new Ford F-250 pickup trucks, which are in the final stages of preparation and slated to be delivered to the district within the next 4 to 6 weeks. These vehicles will significantly bolster our aging fleet and will immediately enhance our ability to service the district, especially the winter months. That concludes my question, or my update. Are there any questions in regard to my updates?
Chris, my only question is, can we do an overhaul of looking at our snow plows and snow removal prior to the first snowstorm? Can we just make sure that we have the appropriate snow removal items that will be needed in case of a storm?
That actually has been taking place over the last month and a half.
Thank you very much.
With regard to maintaining or bringing things, fixing things that have sat all summer long, making sure we have the right supplies and the right tools in the right place at the right time. So that is absolutely part of the preparation that's been taking place over the last 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. It actually started in late August. So,
Yeah, in some past years, we find out when we put the snowplow on the ground for the first time, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
I also appreciate your team this morning. I was at Waddington first thing this morning, and I know that the problem could only be handled by an outside company, but they still were there, and I appreciate that very, very much. It was very, very cold there, and when I was leaving, it was getting pretty warm, so
it did.
we definitely need to figure out a way for that to, and I know you're already doing it, but for it to work a little better than having an outside company like that.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So
I'll
thank
pass
you.
on your sentiments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My next item up, and as I believe you have it in your packet, it's regarding the disposal of surplus and/or obsolete equipment. If you refer to the two-page document there, I list 15 different pieces of equipment that we are poised to deactivate, scrap, or even sell if it is appropriate. Do you have any questions, short of going through and reading each piece of equipment? Are there any questions regarding the list that you have in front of you?
Chris, I do have one question. One of the items, item 10, the gym lockers, are they, is it something that would actually resemble a locker when changing hands, in other words, or will it just be a bent piece of metal? I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to maybe do a fundraising piece for the athletics program or something where a member of the community might want to.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. These are very respectable looking devices, units. They come in 3 abreast of each other. We have the 12-inch wide by 72-inch tall, 3 to a unit, and we also have the units that have 12 17 by 12-inch lockers in them. So we do have a variety available.
Thinking maybe there's an opportunity.
Fundraising opportunity.
A fundraising raffle opportunity.
You were gonna say free.
No.
Fundraising
I said,
opportunity.
didn't I say fundraising when I started out? I did. Yes.
That's huge.
My wife will tell you, nothing's free. Nothing's free.
I'm all in this.
Right? I think it's, you could make it part of another event, but,
Can we get the art department to paint them and make them look really cool?
so, yeah, if we could, before we just kind of put those out, maybe make them part of an event.
And they could paint them and make it,
Yeah, okay.
love this idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've had people scrapping for a random brick. So
I'll tell you,
I
people
think
wanted the chairs when we got rid of the high school. I'm not saying that I wanted a locker, but I'm saying I'd raffle myself a locker.
No, actually,
These
someone
are-
had said,
these
oh, what
are
about a locker?
Very, very nondescript. There is nothing EP-ish about these lockers. They are gray metal lockers.
Not until you put some
It's-
spray
it's-
paint on them.
It's
Okay.
all about, when you're.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, when you're in the garage throwing back 1 or 2 and you say,
Sodas.
you know where that's from?
Understood.
Do they smell? Because that would give it character.
I have not approached
So-
them for smell.
We could ask more money for them.
So
students.
that being
We'll tuck
said,
those away for a certain amount of time and await the fundraising efforts to come forward.
Joel, put some socks in there for a while.
are my socks.
Any other questions about the 15 items?
Good idea.
No, but I am serious on that. I think there's
Sure.
an opportunity to raise some funds for a program or 2 here.
I might also add, this is something I talked to Mr. Vinatero about, is that all the wool hand-sewn banners that used to hang in the gymnasium, we have set aside, folded, neatly categorized by year, by sport.
Yes.
Those too could be
Yeah.
presented in some kind of fundraising fashion.
Yes.
Be it an auction or a bid process of some type. We have a lot of them. I mean, probably conservative estimates, probably 50 to 60 banners that I imagine are pretty sentimental to some folks.
Yeah.
That deserve to be displayed in some fashion, I would think.
Yeah, so if we can put some, again, it's early and I know other minds will get to this, but some of those pieces might be silent auction type opportunities, but then the others, I also, I like the raffle piece where, money's not a factor as to who has a chance to get it. So Because silent auctions are good for those that can afford to outbid, but, so, yeah, I think there's some discussion around those items. And
Okay,
so,
very
yeah.
good, very good.
Okay, thank you.
Any
other
other questions? Okay, so if I have your permission to move forward with the disposal and/or sale of those 15 items, I will do so accordingly and involve Mr. Enos in the potential sale or scrapping value of anything that comes our way.
14 items, because we just took one off the list.
Okay, you got it, 14. All
Um,
right, so we'll remove number 10. Number 10 on your list will be removed
Yes.
and held for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and that'll be, we'll hit that number 19 of action items. So, absolutely.
Very good.
Any other questions? Thank you, by the way, for bringing this to us. Next item, please.
Next item is the Policy Committee report by Jessica Beauchesne.
Okay, so the policy that you have in your packet originally you can throw away. And the new one that's in front of you, the one on the page 1 of 1, is where we're going to start. This is a requirement of the Nathan Bruno, Jason Flatt Act for districts to develop and adopt a policy on student suicide prevention. So again, the one that's in your packet from 207, you can just throw away. This is the one that we're going to start with. And what we're going to do is the district is going to establish this policy to help protect the health and well-being of all students through prevention, risk assessment, intervention, and response to suicide. What you don't have in front of you is what the scope of the project, what we're going to do to make this happen. And I know policies don't necessarily always have the scope or what we're going to do to make sure that happens. I think it's important for all of us to understand why we need to see it. So the statute of this act, which is at RIDE, states that there has to be prevention curricula for grades 6 to 8 and staff professional development. And I think that is not part of it, and we're going to add it for second read. So for first read, this is what the policy is and what we're doing and why we're doing it. But I think it's important for you guys to understand why we need to focus on safe and health choices, the coping strategies, and everything else that has to go with it. This more than ever has hit home a lot in the East Bay over the last couple months. So I've asked that we're going to add to it. We're going to add the interventions that are going to be part of it and the training. So that is the first part of it. And I apologize that the other part was part of it. As you can see, it was not even dated the right thing. The updated green building standards policy is pretty standard. And number 3, we're not even going to talk about tonight. So we're fine. I'm going to ask that we table that and move that until our next meeting. But we can do that under action items. If you have any questions or concerns about these and you want to send me an email or call the superintendent, the Greens policy has nothing to do with me at all, so you can call her directly on that. I think that's more of something that we need, especially with the new high school and all the other work that we're doing in both other schools, all schools actually. But the crisis policy, we do have to update it, and it does have to align with the state. So that in itself, but I really would like to continue to add more to it a little bit. And I'm done. Moving on.
I'll get back to you on some additional recommendations. I'm still looking around to see what other school districts are doing and stuff. So I'll get in contact with you and Dr. Ferrand as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, please.
Next item is the Building Committee report by Joel Montero.
Okay, so Mr. Murphy gave an update on the repair of the drain at the rear of the building. That's progressing forward. Really really highlights, I'm not even going to get into, you guys have the report in the packet with seeing much of the, of what's going on, but budget-wise, we're still under budget, progressing very well. And I know, Alfred, I'm just kind of going through this, but it gets a little lengthy and repetitive. Next steps, you'll see the work out front is just about complete. Softball field is not yet turned over, just about complete. Waiting on that parking lot will become available and lined in the coming weeks. So we'll have all of our parking spaces available to the students and staff and visitors. Work that is kind of in progress, or not in progress, but TBD, out on Pawtucket Avenue. You'll notice we're still working with that temporary traffic signal setup, and we are in talks with the city to potentially, hopefully, move a water line, not in the coming month or months, but rather than going with an alternative setup, we would like to stick with the original design, which basically puts a new mast arm where the existing one is, that will hold all three signals on the horizontal arm. But until we move the water line that sits underneath that foundation, we can't do anything there. So we're hoping that the city can figure that out, come up with a plan, and schedule that work to be done, and we can go with the original design, because the alternative design is to use that existing pole for the two traffic lanes going south, and then basically install a longer arm that is based on the school side of Pawtucket Avenue, reaching all the way across, just for a turn signal. It's less than ideal. So that's why we're holding off, and we may or may not pull that out of the contract from a time standpoint, but we already own the mast arm, so that's why that is our preferred option, that the city will move that water line. And for those that haven't been following, that water line runs underneath, because Pawtucket Avenue used to be a little further west as it made that bend. Any questions? Again, I know I just kind of did a very brief overview, but it's, most of the work is visible. The new digital sign at the top of the hill, that's kind of a cool addition, and piece of information. And Principal Black and Mr. Villanueva will work out how they want to put that into action, what kind of communications, but it's a great opportunity for the community there. So, and I guess the other project will start to kick off in probably next few months with regards to updates on the Martin Middle School in Waddington project as that takes shape. That's all I have. Thank you, Alfred, for trying to keep track of what I was saying. I could see the light flasher behind me. That's about all I knew. Any questions? And, I'm sorry, for the record, we never had multiple leaks in this building. I do want to publicly state that, again, trying to get past that, but for concerned residents who had contacted me with some of that misinformation. The roof outside of, I think we had one, on that August storm, we had one leak, and then another was condensation issue, I believe, right, Chris? But we didn't have, I think the number was 137, what was said to be, believe it or not. So, yeah, we had one, maybe two. So, forgive me for needing to clear that up, but it's insulting to the men and women that have, poured their heart into this building and did yeoman's work to get this thing done, so. Next item, please.
Next item is discussion items.
First, we have the 23-24 high school program of studies. Principal Black, you know, I'm sitting there saying, boy, he's really in it for the long haul here, and he's hanging out for the meeting. And I didn't, I apologize, I would have pulled you forward. I'm a little disconnected, I guess, tonight.
No, that's all right. Happy to be here. So, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
One thing I will say, I just was, when I heard the retirements, Regina Jones was my student teacher. I learned teaching in 4th grade at Kent Heights under her tutelage. And, you know, she's a great asset to the district. A lot of people learned under Miss Jones, and it's really cool when I see her when I came back to the district and then in this role. So we're going to miss her as well as the others, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
She, you know, my kids went to Kent Heights, and they did not have her, but, you know, someone that when you watch the teachers come out and greet their students, just always a smile, just so, and you know, you hear that, like, just people being polite, but legit, whenever you saw Ms. Jones, like, she was smiling, you know, to greet her students, and it, you know, as someone who, a parent who, whose child did not have her, you know, it stands out, and, you know, makes a difference to educators and, you know, like yourself. So that must be where you picked it up, Mr. Black.
Yeah, she gets all the credit for the good stuff. The other stuff's my fault, but we'll definitely miss her. So tonight we have the program of studies for the high school. You might be looking at your calendar and saying, why are we a few months early than usual? That's very intentional. So coming to the high school and wanting to bump this up, talking to other districts around the state and other high schools, this is done a lot of times in the fall, so you can really spend time with the students on going over the courses, you can spend time with your staff on scheduling, and you can get a lot more done while people are in the building, including figuring out what your staffing needs are, so we're not trying to hire last minute, and I think it just gets us more organized. So we've worked on a scheduling timeline as we did at the middle school. We worked on that at the high school, and we've just completed that. So really every month of the year, there are some things that you need to do for the scheduling process to be successful. There's little pieces of it. So a big part of it is really starting here now with our program of studies. So I just wanted to share that with you. We have highlights. You know, in the past, we've talked about any new items and changes, things that are significant to the program of studies that we think you would want to hear. We know we gave you the 75 pages. I'm sure that's something that you wouldn't want to read through all of it. I can start with the highlights, and if there are any questions from there, please stop me. So one is in our in special education and special services. We have a course for the Partners program now, so that's something that we've had in existence for many years. It is now included in the program of studies. So this includes both inclusion, reverse inclusion, peers, working together in academics, transition, citizenship, work readiness training, so that being a designated course now. Another highlight would be school counseling. So when I came in front of us last year, just coming on board, I know we had received some feedback about the school counseling and just separating what goals look like for students for each year from grade 9 through 12. So we wanted to make sure we spent some time with our counselors to look at that. In grade 9, it's 4-year course planning, so really looking ahead at what your courses are going to look like and graduation requirements right when you come into the school. Academic goal setting and even resume building, that's the career piece that comes in 9th grade. In 10th grade, a skills assessment, career goal setting, and identifying post-secondary schools of interest. 11th grade is exploring skills, expanding career awareness, and it proceeds through 12th grade with post-secondary transition planning, updating, finalizing resume. So that's the progression of what it looks like for a student coming through the high school year by year. There is obviously a lot more to that, but just to spell it out and just be intentional about it. In world language, we are changing our heritage class to a full year course from a semester course. So there's been an increase in heritage speakers in the district. These are our speakers that have strong speaking and listening skills, but struggle sometimes in reading and writing. So adding that class for the year will give these students just a full year of instruction, and the goal is that they would be in a level 4 or level 5 class, building those literacy skills while they're here for the following year. That'll support our world language classes as well as English language arts classes. Another thing that we're excited about in terms of our pathway, and this has to do somewhat with the herd and just more excitement around kind of just athletics and that experience students are having. So we've added a sports media elective, coaching and officiating pathway. We're seeing more interest in overall student engagement in those areas. So that's the courses that our phys ed and health teachers wanted to get involved in the pathways. So that's their entry point into that. There's also a big need for just officials at the youth level throughout. So if we can get students some experience there as well, only the better. In science, we've added a new course, biotechnology. We've also removed a course, chemistry of Narragansett Bay. We weren't really seeing a lot of requests for that course. Sometimes happens from year to year. So just working with the science department, biotechnology seemed to be some interest among the students. So looking forward to that new class. In our CTC program, we have some new and exciting things going on. So our fashion design, which has been part of our art program, we're now wanting to move that under the CTC umbrella to take advantage of, all the opportunities, including resources and funding that go along with that. The intention is that we'll move to a full CTC program probably in the next 2 to 3 years, but we already have these things in place. We have, a top-notch educator running that program. We have a ton of student interest. If you've come to any of the events that we've had or walked by that classroom, there's just a lot of creation and just a lot of student engagement. It's kind of the definition of student engagement in that room. So that's what we're looking to do. So that's an adjustment you'll see in the program of studies, that falling under CTC. Dental assisting courses, looking at counting that for a half credit in phys ed health to be able to allow that flexibility for students when they're getting a lot of the same things, instead of taking that health class, being able to eventually get out and provide some more experience for students. So we're combining that. Our information technology program is looking at some semester electives for certification. So we've heard from the CTC board, and this is something that they're very excited about. So Network Plus, Linux Plus, certifying students in those courses will allow them to pick up those certifications while they're here. Pre-engineering is designated some classes as honors level. We don't want to discourage students that want to get those honors credits for their GPA and want to look for that weighted GPA, and a lot of them are looking for the pre-engineering program, so we want to be able to provide that for them to get that level of content, instruction, but also get the weighted GPA with honors. So that flexibility is really based on student need. We have a new art class, which is an EEP class. Our EEP classes are very popular for getting college credit. So art is taking advantage of that as well. It's a year-long studio art course for 11th and 12th graders. The last piece that we're looking at in our math program is some classes that we really haven't seen interest in or really haven't run sometimes. So our bootstrap algebra course, as well as academically, when we look at our advanced prep classes, our AP statistics classes, we need to do some work there before we just continue to offer that class. So that's something we're really looking at the data for that class. And we still have all our other AP offerings, but that's an area where we really haven't seen a lot of success over the years. So we want to pause on that class, take a look at it, and see what we need to do to bring that back. So that's that AP stats class. The last piece is just in our English courses. So the only thing you would notice there is we've expanded our electives to allow freshmen to take some more elective courses in English. So those are around graphic novels and writing courses. So before, where they were only capped 10, 11, and 12, now freshmen can take those as an elective as well to help with their writing, as well as when a freshman's looking for what elective to take. A lot of times graphic novels might meet their needs. So all of our changes, I feel confident, are very focused on the students. So does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the committee?
How does one choose what to take? I mean, it's overwhelming what we offer at this school. So I guess my question is, how many electives are offered to our regular ninth grade student that comes in here?
So ninth graders are taking seven classes.
Yep.
They're probably taking a phys ed and health. They're taking in math class, either their algebra 1 or algebra 2, depending on what they did in middle school. They're taking an English 9. They could be taking a world language, which could be, if it's a Spanish or Portuguese 1 or 2 based on middle school. So they're probably, outside of looking at health and phys ed, they probably open up to taking 2 elective classes. There are semester offerings at that time. So that's sometimes an intro to art, could be in the fine arts program. It could be one of these English classes. So there's not a lot of flexibility your freshman year for the electives, but there's some. And then as you grow and, meet enough requirements and credits after your freshman year and maintain that sophomore and junior status, progressing, you'll be able to take more and more electives. If you're in the CTC side of things, it looks pretty similar until you get into, that third year and fourth year, and a lot of those are double blocks. So you'd be taking, almost a half a day or 2 blocks in culinary or in automotive or construction, and that tends to limit you a little bit on other electives that you have. But that's the choice that, you have to make once you're, get to that third year.
Good, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, do the older students get to have first dibs basically on the electives that may be available to multiple grades?
So when we schedule, yes, to answer your question, yes. So when we schedule, we really look at our seniors first and see what are the graduation requirements that they have for those to make sure they're getting the requirements that they need in that final year. But we kind of work backwards from there. So back to the beginning of that scheduling timeline, it gives us a better opportunity. So if we look at it, we've always been doing this later on in the year, say in March, and sometimes we're having those conversations, counselors are having them over the summer with students and trying to say, these are the classes you need and trying to fit them in. We feel by bumping this up, they're able to have those conversations in the spring while the students are still in, say, their junior year, looking at next year's classes. But yeah, it's always prioritized by graduation and who's closest to that. And then it kind of goes to those students that are right in between their junior and senior year that just need a couple more credits. And then we work backwards off that. You're welcome.
Question on, when I was looking, and I'm not going to find the page, but when you went to the graduation requirements, if I remember correctly, on the math piece, you have, if you didn't take Algebra 1 in middle school, then you've got your Algebra 1 and Geometry to complete your math requirement, correct?
Yep.
And then if you did take Algebra 1 in middle school, then you have Algebra 2 and Geometry to complete your math requirement. Is that correct?
Yep, you could take so we have a total of 4 credits. So Algebra 1, Geometry, plus 2 other classes. So that could be an Algebra 2. Sometimes students are taking a class for financial literacy as well as a math to get that math related. If they're not really heading down that math track or they're falling behind, they have that opportunity to take stocks and investments. Those are some of the semester classes that we offer in math that count towards their math requirement.
So we don't yet have like a personal finance as a requirement in that? It's an elective, but not a requirement?
It's a graduation requirement, so you do have to take a financial literacy type course, like a personal finance, a stocks and investment, to understand that financial literacy piece of it.
Okay.
There's a school store banking class that we'll offer
Yeah.
this year. So those all fit in to that. They count towards that math credit and towards their getting that credit in financial literacy. It's part of our graduation requirement.
So is it, so, and I mean, I know it's like it's kind of a broad title, right? Like financial literacy, so it's like, okay, so you can go into the stock side of things, but, can you balance a checkbook? Like, seems to be, even for, some, like a skill that's not necessarily transferable, or, understood by, regardless of academic performance. So that was one of my questions. The other question I wonder, and you guys may have gone through this, was there any discussion about saying, okay, so if you took your Algebra 1 in middle school, you've, like we talk about EEP moving on to college, right? So you've earned that credit going in. I know you don't. Yeah. So I'm saying, was there any discussion and therefore freed up that student for an elective class? Because, it almost seems like, because maybe you don't want to continue on the math track to an Algebra 2, maybe, whatever your pathway is, if it's whatever it is, if it's not going down a math track, is it possible to say that you've met, count those credits in 8th grade for your Algebra 1, and therefore freeing up an elective for a student to take something not math related, but I don't know, was there any conversation on that, or?
So at the middle school level, completing Algebra 1 and then that counting as a high school credit?
Right.
Yes. Yep, that is happening.
But if I read it right, it said that if they took it in 8th grade, then they take Algebra 2.
Correct.
When they come in here. But so I'm saying, but if they didn't take it, then they don't have to take Algebra 2, they only have to take Algebra 1 when they come. So if they didn't take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, they come to the high school.
Yep.
They can graduate without taking Algebra 2.
Correct. So the graduation requirement for the high school is Algebra 1 and geometry.
Right. So, but if you took Algebra 1 in middle school, you're required to take Algebra 2 and geometry and a couple others, right? 2 electives. So I'm asking, was there any conversation to say, you know what, you've met the algebra, in other words, having the requirement, and I'm in no way trying to reduce our rigor, but for someone who's just like adverse to math and just says, I just want to, let me hit my requirements and move on to what I'm interested in. It almost seems like, okay, so if you were able to do it in middle school, now you're going to be required to do it again. If you hated your way through Algebra 1, you've got to take Algebra 2 in 9th grade. So it's like, well, I don't know. It just sounds to me like maybe there's an unless there's a rationale behind it. I'm just wondering if there's some reasoning to say, you know what, you've completed that piece of it. Take your geometry. Take 2 other electives. One hopefully being you have the financial literacy. Is that in math or is that separate?
So financial literacy, some of the courses count under your math credit. So I think that would be the example.
Okay.
So if those fall under the social studies department, financial literacy, but they're math related. So where math related is, it gives you a flex credit. So that could count towards your math graduation requirement as well as your financial literacy.
So, okay, so, but it's still, so my question still kind of stands on the, if I've banged out Algebra 1 in middle school, I've basically put myself in a position where I have to continue to Algebra 2 at the high school, instead of maybe having an elective to take something of interest. But if I didn't take it in middle school, then I may not have another elective choice, but I end at Algebra 1 if that's as far as I want to go. So we've taken the choice out of it. I feel like if you've excelled in middle school, but,
Yeah.
Well,
we have classes like an algebra readiness lab. So there are classes that, you're still getting that graduation requirement. They still meet the standards of it. So you can get those math credits that you need. The state has the requirements for us in terms of graduating. So we have that, like, different classes that you could take and still get that, that math component to meet the graduation requirement. I'm not really sure what you're asking.
I guess what I'm saying is that if someone took Algebra 1 in middle school in 8th grade, wouldn't it be good to free up that class for them to take an elective of choice and not have to still have the same amount of math credit requirements for high school? Now, you know what I mean? Like you come into 9th grade having one of those already in your pocket, and now you've got room to choose an elective of choice.
So if you take that Algebra 1 class in middle school, and you're coming to the high school with that credit's already in your pocket.
Yeah, but you're required to take Algebra 2.
And then you take Algebra 2, and now you've got 2 credits going into your sophomore year. You've got your Algebra 2 and your Algebra 1 from middle school.
Okay.
So you only have to take 3 credits.
You'd only take 3 at the high school because you'd already have 1 from
Right.
middle school.
Oh,
Just
you
like
are-
world
okay.
language.
And that's what changed, because that's not what it used to be.
So you can leave middle school with your credit in world language and your credit and a credit in math. Come into the high school with 2 credits with those
And
2
did the middle
areas.
school students who entered 8th grade this year know that when they either chose not to take Algebra 1 or a language, or didn't have that opportunity?
I wasn't there,
Remember-
but we always would tell them that. I mean,
Because that
we were
that
pretty
wasn't what it
clear.
used to be. Used to be when you left algebra, and I don't say used to, I mean, I'm not talking that long ago, but when you took Algebra 1 in 8th grade, you came here and still were required to take 4 years of a math.
Yeah.
And so you had to take Algebra 2, geometry, and whatever other 2 AP stats, just speaking for past experience, so you had to take those classes. So now you're saying, which I think is really good, students who take Algebra 1 at the middle school are exempt, they get an extra elective.
They carry it's a credit, so it's a high
Correct.
school-based
And
class.
that
They're just
wasn't
taking it a
always
year earlier.
what it was. And I just want to make sure that we're relaying that down to the middle school students who chose not to take a language, because now they do have that opportunity.
We were always pretty clear with it. I mean, it was Math 8 or it was Algebra 1.
Yep.
If you took Algebra 1, it was Algebra 1 for high school. If you took Spanish or Portuguese
I just want to make
1.
sure they understand it's a credit now. It is a credit, it is another option, because it always wasn't that way.
Frankly, that's how we would pitch it. I mean,
Yeah.
we would have meetings with the entire 7th grade and let them know that, this is why you should take this class. Because it's like, well, why do I want to take a full year of that if I don't have to, right? That's kind of the attitude sometimes. So you have to have that meeting with them.
Now, is that offered to all students, or do you have to have a certain, I don't want to say this, state test score or iReady score, or is Algebra 1 offered to all 8th graders? And I know this is really weird that I'm asking you this, but
No, that's okay.
you seem to be the knowledgeable person today.
So when you're at the middle school, you have that 7th grade year in math. So it's a little bit different for math and a world language. So just so I clarify, So math is, you're taking that, you're really in 7th grade, if you're in that 7th grade honors math class, you're really taking 2 years of math in 7th grade. So it's very intense. And then that lets you take, it's basically pre-algebra. So you're jumping from 6th grade math to pre. So if you're on that track, if you're on that plan and pathway to take that, then in 8th grade, you would be taking Algebra 1.
Okay.
And in world language, it was more of a, let's pitch it. Let's let them know that this is a credit. You're already kind of on that pathway in math, but in world language, you're saying, no, this is why you need to take Portuguese 1 or Spanish 1. This is why it's important. And the teachers would come in and we would have presentations with the students and did Google Meets during COVID about it, to try to excite them about the language and give them the purpose of why you would take it. Because you can come into this building with 2 credits in your pocket already and just be able to have more choice as you go through it. So, I mean, that's the way it's been since I was at Martin. It didn't change at all from there. That was what we took on and how we communicated it with students along the way.
Colonel?
I apologize for, obviously, I misunderstood that, and we went around the block instead of cutting through the yard.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Okay.
I had to write it down. I literally wrote it down for me to understand it.
So, all right, yeah, so.
You know me, I love this stuff, so.
And that's
I do.
Like Jessica said, and like that was one of the things, okay, how do we free up, or I should say, bring in more student choice, right? And I know that's, which is what I appreciate, that is ultimately the goal, to meet requirements, state requirements, and, bring in the rigor, but, increase choice. So, okay.
All right.
And, yeah. The officiating piece, I think that'd be, if we combined that with some of the youth sports programs and student community service hours.
Yep. No, that's something that they want to look at. They're excited about it. They've talked about a game management piece for those of you that have kind of seen the herd, and some are doing the announcing at the game, some are kind of organizing the crowd at the game, some are doing some social media at the game. So it could really be that game management piece. And we're talking about junior and senior year, you're working at a Providence College game or URI game or something, for football or basketball, like if you want to get into that, because all those events have turned into, big experiences, and those students are very involved in it. So I think some of our students would probably want to go down that pathway too. It's all about finding out, giving them, like you said, as much choice so they're doing something they like.
Last question I have is loaded. Guidance department. Do we feel like we have the resources?
Guidance department, do we feel we have the resources?
Yeah. And this is not, it's loaded in a question to you, but it's not because of anything that I've heard. I'm sincerely asking, just, we talk about access to students and students access and times, the day's only so long.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, this year especially, is that they're working extremely hard. I get concerned about our counseling department in terms of the amount of time that they're trying to put in to meet the needs of all the students. They're going 100%. I see it all the time. So, I think it's kind of figuring out, how to support them to make sure they're supporting the students. It's a lot with the individual plans for over 1,650 students,
Right.
6 counselors.
Well, that's kind of why I'm asking, if that's as difficult as it may be of an ask, if there are necessary resources, that are going to improve our touch, points, it makes a difference.
And they're taking on some training too with the state this year in terms of focusing on, with a real focus on equity. So looking at a small group within the school, specifically they're focused on now 10th graders, and just looking at all of their data, academic data, attendance, discipline, just really seeing if they can affect change. And how, right now it's just pulling all that data to see how they can affect change with that. And that's under the national movement for counselors. We have 2 counselors participating. We'd like you to have all of them, but I mean, I think that would just be too much for our entire department to take on right now. They're all involved in it, but 2 are the point people that are doing the professional development with it. The idea is if we can move that group, those are strategies we can use with the entire school. But yes, there's a lot out of the, and it's that whole change, right? Even when you talk in that department, you don't even use the G word anymore. It's counseling, not guidance, because it's more than guidance, right? It's more than guiding students as we did in the day. It's getting involved social, emotionally, academically with the families, figuring out career plans, academics, and then with all the needs that students come in with.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it'd be something to keep a finger on the pulse of that, only because the touch is more and more important for the reason that you stated, and it goes a long way. I can, I had, my experiences in the high school were, I think I can remember twice, meeting with my guidance counselor, and one of them was because I went in looking, for something that wasn't presented to me, and that was years ago, right, decades ago, but, there's a workload piece of that, but, if we need to increase resources, if we can't, we can, or, if we can't justify it, but I just want to make sure we're always looking at that to make sure that we're touching each student.
Yeah, go on to the days of, where do you want to go? If you're on the college track, you want to go to Rick or you want to go to URI?
Yeah.
I think that was the question we all got asked.
Yeah.
I feel like now I think somebody went to URI, I went to Rick. So, I mean, it's not bad. It's just there's a lot more that goes into it now, and they're a lot more involved. The WIN block has helped a lot too. I mean, they're very active during that time. So they're pulling small groups of students and doing some of that breakdown by grade level that we added to the program of studies. Meeting with small groups of students and looking at resumes and looking at, what they need for graduation requirements, talking about life with them and choices that they want to make. So there is, wish we had more touch points, but they're definitely there.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right,
That's
thank you,
what-
everyone.
I knew, I must have known it would be a deeper discussion. That's why I had to hang around. Thank you very much, Mr. Black.
Thank you, everyone.
Next item, discussions. Paraprofessionals, administrative assistants, custodians, sub-pay. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just found a little mistake.
No, on the sub-pay, did you want to speak to that, Mr. Enos? No?
No.
Does someone want to?
It's in our packet.
Yeah, I know it's in the packet, but yeah, I'm sorry, Mark, I think numbers and I go to, Thank you.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the information is in your packet there. You can see that the superintendent gathered some data so that you could compare to other communities hourly rates that are currently in place for substitutes in other communities. And the recommendation that you're seeing there for our substitute positions is basically to maintain competitiveness. We have been finding in my relatively short tenure here that people are making comparisons to other communities, if they're contemplating a position with the district in a substitute fashion. And while there's an appeal to, in some areas, to be a substitute here because it often dovetails into a permanent position at a later time, we feel that we need the rates that are being recommended to the committee. I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
So, thank you for that. I just want to point out, I have one document in my packet, and it shows the rates of the other districts, but it doesn't show the proposed rate. I just have a one-page piece, and I'm trying to.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that where it says East Providence, that's current, and then it shows the other districts, but then it doesn't.
It should at the very bottom. The hard copy that I have, I can pull it for you, but the hard copy that I have shows the recommendation for the rates that the superintendent's recommending for the district.
So if we just if somebody has it, I don't, if you have it, just, we're going to read them out anyway.
That can't be it, the one that we got.
What, this?
Yeah.
No, that's currently, right, so currently we're custodians
No,
at
wait, don't say that.
$12.25, and then para is at 15.
16 for each. We're recommending 16 for each.
Okay. That sounds, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, somebody just sent it, so.
Sandy.
That's why,
I didn't catch that. 16 for each?
16 for each.
And that, I'm assuming, is okay with the union? We're not stepping on any union feet?
Respectfully.
Correct. I just want to make sure.
I mean, I don't, when I say this respectfully, I don't think that there's,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to answer that question, substitutes are not part of the union, so there is no discussion with the union on this.
I know that. I just want to make sure that they're not, that we're paying according to, am I?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like, I just want to, I just want to make sure that we're not overpaying our subs for current members of our full-time
No,
staff.
if you were to look at the salaries of our permanent employees, there's not going to be any collision with respect to subs.
Thank you.
So that at 16, that puts us in play anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It seems pretty fair compared to the.
What's that?
It seems pretty fair, especially with the district that's closest to us in size and population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, that's.
And thank you, Mark, for coming up. Any other questions on that?
That's unbelievable.
All right. Next item, please.
Next item is action items, starting with consider and vote to approve bill list.
Any questions, comments, discussions? We'll entertain a motion.
The motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brandel. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is, you want me to, I can just go through. Consider a vote to approve the 2023-2024 East Providence High School Program of Studies.
Move to approve.
I'll second, but at the bottom of the second page, we just have to change the address and title for Dr. Bowler. We just noticed it, so it just has her at Taunton Ave, and she doesn't reside there anymore. So we can just change that. We're all set?
All right, so we have a motion and a second with amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So, okay, thank you. So we have a action item to approve Riverside Middle School trip to Washington, D.C. I just, thinking it's always been customary, and I think in the future, like on these trips, that we have someone here to kind of speak to it with a little more detail. I appreciate the write-up, but, and this is going to be student-focused, but I think it should be represented.
I can speak on it, but I don't think that's who you want me to.
Any questions, comments, or motion?
I make a motion to approve.
A motion by Ms. Boshain. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And just because it's on the record, I also want to, I don't know what it requires, but we've moved for equity in the district. And I know in my tenure, and I believe in yours, we used to have where Martin was doing, I think their Philadelphia trip, and Riverside had nothing, and we kind of made it a point to say, these are two middle schools that should be offering the same opportunities. That's not the case this year.
Yet.
Right. And it wouldn't have been the case at all if it hadn't been, the concern hadn't been risen. So and I know Dr. Ferrand is watching, but this needs to be a standard as to the extent possible. There's going to be differences, and that's fine, but as far as the experiences and the number of experiences and the interest level or what have you, whether it's DC to Philadelphia, okay, I could go with those being similar experiences and opportunities. Quite frankly, DC and Boston is not a similar opportunity.
I couldn't agree with you more.
It's not what we built up to a few years ago. This is a step back, and hopefully it's just a blip.
I'm missing something.
Next item, do you have consider vote to approve the updated green building standards policy? Right.
I make a motion to approve.
A motion by Ms. Boshain. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, consider vote to approve, here he is, Mr. Enos. So we're going to go, what are we at? 5 through, just 5, 6, and 7? Well, you're going to be up here for a little bit anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to stay up a bit. So, construction invoices, we only have two. Gilbane Building Company, $752,748.06, and Peregrine Group LLC, $59,000, for a total of $811,748.06 for construction invoices. For furniture, fixtures, and equipment, We have Brody Inc., $12,389. Kilgore International, $1,324. NextGen, $2,543. Patterson Dental, $26,268.45. And Rogers Athletics, $2,800 for a total of $45,324.45.
Questions, comments? These were all approved by the building committee.
I make a motion.
Motion to approve by Ms. Boshain. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ezanaro. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item 8, consider and vote to approve the award of middle school / elementary band instruments.
As part of our ESSER 3 grant application with RIDE, we listed that one of our goals was to enhance the music programs and pathways at all of our schools. And so we went out for an RFP for music and band equipment for the middle schools and the elementary schools. At this time, we have allocated $100,000 out of the ESSER 3 grant for this, hoping that we can set aside more funds, but at least to get the ball rolling, $100,000, $35,000 towards the elementary schools, and approximately $30,000 each for the middle schools. This took a couple months. There were about 4 responses from vendors that came throughout the United States. And so tonight I'm asking you to make a recommendation to award 3 vendors, Chuck Levins, Washington Music, Music and Arts, and Sweetwater Music. Thank you.
Questions, comments, or motion?
I move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Azanaro. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Boshain. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9.
Sure. As you're aware, back in October, we issued an RFP for HVAC multi-year services for here at East Providence High School. We were hoping to make an award on this RFP tonight. However, when the bid responses came in, we received 2. One of the bids was responsive, and one was not. After review of the proposals by Mr. Murphy and I, we feel that it is in the best interest of the district to hold off at this point and to go out for 1 more month to see if we can get at least 1 more competitive bid so that we can compare 2 like bids in order to make a determination. So I'm asking for 1 more month to hold off on this, and we'll bring this back to you at the December meeting. Thank you.
Questions, comments, or sounds like a request to table.
I make a motion to table till next time.
A motion by Ms. Boshain. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanaro. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, consider vote to approve virtual instruction day plan.
So I will make a motion, but I do want to say that I am not a fan of virtual. I don't think it works. I think that the pandemic really, we did what we had to do, but I believe the time and the effort that went in, I'm appreciative. We asked for more information, we got it. So, you know, we put the hands in the superintendent's hands to do this for a reason, and, you know, I wouldn't want to see a whole year of, 5 virtual snow days, but, you know, at any time a blizzard could happen. So I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
A motion by Ms. Boshain, second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, consider and vote to approve the EPCAP Memorandum of Understanding
I just realized that.
for Community Health Center. I know, and I'm so disconnected, and I would have moved this up for a vote and not, actually, this is not we've gone a lot later, so you're doing okay. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brandel, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanera, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed?
I
Motion
feel like
carries.
this has been a long time coming. I feel like we've been sitting here for a while with this, so.
Thank you. Item 12 is consider and vote to approve paras, administrative assistants, and custodian subpay to $16 an hour for each.
I also think this has been a long time coming.
Yes.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Azanero,
I'll second.
second to Ms. Boshain. She beat seniority. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Consider and vote to approve job description for the attendance officer.
Well, I'm interested in this position, so I'm going to approve this and hope to see someone apply and we get some results. So.
So I have a motion by Ms. Boshain. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is consider and vote to approve the Facility Equity Initiative applications.
Oh, I will, yes, I will make a motion to approve that.
We have a motion by Ms. Boshain. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
That's my mom, I gotta go.
Motion carries. And item 15, I will entertain a motion to table.
16?
And 16, thank you. Items 15 and 16, motion to table.
I make a motion to
Motion
table?
by Ms. Boshain. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Brandel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 17 is consider and vote to approve awarding of ball field netting RFP.
On October 25th, we issued an RFP for the ball field netting for the baseball soccer field closest to the administration building. We received one response from that, and that was from RAD Sports out of Rockland, Massachusetts, for $76,380. I am asking you to award this to RAD Sports, and this expense will be covered as part of the East Providence High School building project.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just as a matter of understanding, the reason why it comes here is by pulling it out, so saves us money not going through the Gilbane contract with the upcharges and so forth. And this is something that was pulled out of the original design as we were reducing costs prior to contract, and with the available funds, put them back in, and we will no longer have parents standing in the roadway between the administrative office and the soccer field catching wayward balls. So consider vote to approve awarding of ball field netting. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Azanero. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Boshain. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 18, consider and vote to approve contract for staff account.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Boshain. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 19, consider and vote to approve disposal of surplus obsolete equipment, ball 14 minus item 10.
I make a motion for all surplus minus number 10.
We have a motion by Ms. Boshain. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Azanero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I think Mr. Montero should make that his project come January to figure out what we do with that.
Yeah, why
I think, yes, and I have a second from the front row.
All right. Item 20, consider and vote to approve contract for AI3 architects, as discussed earlier.
Subject to pending,
I'm sorry?
subject to pending.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, which would be subject to our legal and finance director approval.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Ms. Azanero. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Boshain. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And I'm thinking since, anybody public comment? No. Sharon, that's okay. I don't- No. All right. Next item is, I know, Max, announcements. I will go first, if I may, in congratulating.
It was an early meeting.
No, I want to congratulate the three of you on your re-elections. Well-deserved, well-earned, and I look forward to watching you guys continue good work. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you for making it easier for me to kind of, walk away with a level of peace. It's all yours. It's like dropping the kids off at the babysitter. There you go.
Wow.
Still think you're the chair of those committees, and I don't.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, any other announcements?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right, and I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brando, do we have a second?
Second,
Second by Ms. Azanero.
still Asnero.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?